Hey everyone, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm going to be talking about Episode 5 of Season 1 of Green Lantern, the animated series, entitled Lost Planet. I think this actually might be the strongest episode of the series that we've seen so far. And one of the reasons why I feel this way is that I think this is also an extremely philosophical episode. Now that might sound a little strange, but let me get into why I feel this way. The first thing that we're dealing with is in the conversation that Hal and Kilowog get into on the ship. And in what is very, very clearly influenced by Star Trek, the argument boils down to Kilowog espousing that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And Hal is kind of the guy who's going out there and saying, one man can make a difference. I mean, this is also, basic philosophy, but it's also just such classic stuff from Star Trek. I mean, the fingerprints of Star Trek are all over this episode, and I'm going to point some of these things out to you as we go along. Now, the interesting thing is here, like most really good philosophical arguments, in fiction and in real life, is that both sides are right. Kilowog is right, and from his point of view, is especially important, seeing as how his job is to be a drill sergeant in the Green Lantern Corps. He's big on, in following rules, instilling these things in people, because as a drill sergeant, this is his job. It is his job to beat these things into the heads of new people, because these are the things that keep soldiers and Green Lanterns alive. Now, Hal, being the hotshot test pilot guy, he's used to sort of running off and having to do his own thing, but he's got the skills to back it up. He's got the skills to, be a maverick and pull it off and do things, break the rules when they need to be broken in order to, bring home the victory. I remember, if you've ever seen the show Babylon 5, its creator, J. Michael Straczynski, once said in an interview something that's always really stuck with me. And it was exceptionally true on Babylon 5, and it's very true in a lot of good science fiction. And I'm going to paraphrase this here since I don't remember the exact words, but basically it boils down to the best stories aren't about a great good versus a great evil. I mean, look at, sort of the Rebel Alliance or the Jedi versus the Sith and the Empire in Star Wars. He says that the really best drama comes from two great goods opposing each other. And not to sort of go off on too far of a tangent, but if you've watched Babylon 5, a show I highly recommend, then you will see this philosophy in action, and it does indeed make for some great storytelling. So again, both Hal and Kilowog are right on this, and I, taking Kilowog's side, is also right. So let's keep going on. So they show up on the planet, and forgive me if I'm not able to remember the names of the prisoners. I just can't. Anyway, one thing that I have to point out here that struck me really early on, oh, excuse me, vodka, yeah, is the alien woman. Tell me this woman does not look like a Vulcan / Romulan. I mean, really, she's got the pointy ears and everything. She is totally a Romulan. And the general guy, he has some very obvious shades of a Klingon. I mean, he even says the words, "a good day to die." Come on, if you know Star Trek, Klingons love to say, "Today is a good day to die." And, you maybe throw in a little Qapla' into all that. But let's continue on. So as the story goes along, Kilowog goes off with the general guy, who I'm pretty sure is voiced by John DiMaggio, who is a voice actor who, he ranks so high up on my list. And we all know him as Bender on Futurama, although in my heart he will always be Waka / Kimari in Final Fantasy X. But anyway, he and the general sort of start swapping war stories and get into it. And when things go south, it also becomes a physical and philosophical battle. The general even spells out that his philosophy is that blind loyalty is better than bravery. I'm sorry, blind obedience is better than bravery or loyalty and courage and all the things that Kilowog really values. And that's just good storytelling there. The conflict between these two is both philosophical and physical. So again, really nice storytelling there. And that brings us to the conflict that Razor has with Saint Walker. It's also a physical conflict and a philosophical conflict. And the philosophical conflict is that Razor, of course, relies on rage. That is his thing. That is what fuels his Red Lantern ring. That is what drives him. While Saint Walker, now, I'm a fan of the comics. I know what Saint Walker's deal is, but I'm not going to spoil that for you guys. But he even flat out says to Razor, and I wrote this down, that rage is the orphan of fear and despair. So again, Saint Walker is, instead of acting as an opponent, I mean, he's acting as an opponent, but he's more. Wow, sorry. What he's acting like here is. Wow, I'm really sorry, guys. Is that he reminds me of, if you've ever watched a lot of old kung fu movies from like the 70s. There's the scene where the ancient master will slap a pebble in his hand and he says to the young apprentice, "Okay, when you can snatch this pebble from my hand, then you are a master, or then I will teach you my secret technique," or whatever. And Razor, of course, is completely oblivious to this, but this is essentially what Saint Walker is doing to him. He's initiating conflict because really, what else is going to get in through Razor's head? But every time Razor tries to rely on rage to succeed, Saint Walker just shuts him down, sidesteps him. He's 10 steps ahead of Razor every step of the way. And this is, I think, a lesson that Razor, of course, needs to learn to progress, to move beyond being a Red Lantern, to move beyond just being driven by rage. Because, rage is a powerful thing, but ultimately it's an empty thing. While, the emotions that the Green Lanterns depend on, like willpower, those are not empty things. Those are infinite things. But anyway, another thing that comes up in terms of philosophy is at the end, when Hal, orders everybody away, and he stays behind on the planet to, try his crazy scheme, which of course works. Kilowog comes back and Hal yells at him, and Kilowog says, "Yeah, okay, I just obeyed order." And again, this comes right back to Star Trek. This is basically Star Trek 3, yeah, like Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. And it becomes, and they even say, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or even the one. But in Star Trek 3, they turn it around and kind of basically say, sometimes the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many. Now, it's been a little bit of a while since I've seen Star Trek 3, but you kind of get what I'm saying. The whole thing is there. The crew of the Enterprise throws everything away, kind of goes Maverick just to save Spock. And, here, it's the philosophies coming into conflict and coming around. This time, it's Hal who's being the guy who's like all about orders. You need to follow orders. And it turns around on it, and Kilowog and Ion and everybody are the ones who are disregarding orders. So again, this highlights why both Hal and Kilowog's philosophies are right. And I think why both approaches to the situation are going to be needed in this show. And let me see. Okay, one other thing. I kind of had a feeling, I'm a fan of the comics, as I've said. I've been reading Green Lantern since like the mid 90s. I jumped on board right before right around the time of Emerald Twilight, when that was becoming a big deal, if you know what the comics are. So I'm basically kind of a Kyle Rayner guy. He's the one that really brought me into Green Lantern. But anyway, let's get back to what's going on here in the TV show. Now, as things were going along, I kind of just more and more had the feeling that it was going to turn out to be Mogo. And as soon as the trees parted and led Hal to where he needed to go. I was completely and utterly convinced it was going to be Mogo, and of course I turned out to be right. Now Mogo here looks notably different than he does in the comics. He basically sort of looks like in the comics the chest plate of a Green Lantern, the traditional standard issue Green Lantern uniform, wrapped around a planet. Now here he's sort of more of a bluish sort of blue-white planet that has the Green Lantern symbol going around him as symbolizing both his ring and kind of like the rings of Saturn. You know, it's a very cute, very little visual trick they're playing there. And I did sort of like it, and I kind of wish they'd kept it more like it was in the comics, but I can understand why. That's sort of just such a kitschy, old-timey thing. But I'm fairly sure that Mogo was created by Alan Moore, and nobody in the comics is really going to tinker with anything written by Alan Moore that isn't named Watchmen. Yeah, really, really dumb thing to do there, DC. But I'm getting off track. I did one thing, and maybe this is intentional, maybe it's not, is that I like how the color that instead of it being green that they had for Mogo was blue. And again, if you know the comics and the fact that St. Walker was there, you can understand why the color blue is significant. Because also, now that I think about it, the trees that were on Mogo were blue. Coincidence, subtle symbolism, it's hard to tell. Let me see. Okay, oh yeah, one other thing that I wanted to talk about really quick was that the very beginning where Hal is just sort of dicking around using his ring to play Pong. I found that absolutely hilarious. And one other thing I'm going to have to do before we go here is give a big shout out to Gray DeLise. She is one of my favorite female voice actors. She's got an absolutely tremendous resume. Just to sort of draw the things I've been seeing her in lately is she was Daphne on the new Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, is I believe the name of the show. But to me, she will always be Azula on Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's where pretty sure I first came across her as an actor. And boy, she just knocked Azula out of the park every single time. She breathes such wonderful life into such a great villain and such an interesting character who ended up being so much more than a villain. But okay, we're here to talk Green Lantern and not Avatar. So overall, I think this is a very strong episode. I think it's really advancing the mythology, and it's also kicking the level of the writing up a notch. I love shows that even if they are aimed at a younger audience, are not afraid to treat the people watching as if they have a brain, as if they are capable of not only being exposed to philosophical ideas, but of enjoying this. So yeah, my opinion of the show really, really shot up a lot with this episode. So anyway, next episode, I will be back. Until then, you guys all have a good one. Please, as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. Until then, I will see you later. Bye.